I hit the button. It
You
says
hit
we're
the
live.
button.
I think we're live after a 6-week hiatus. Welcome back to Everything EOS, the longest running EOS podcast since March 2018. Whoa. I got myself in my ears. One sec. Oh my goodness. I had like 3 windows of all the same window in my ear. But we're back, 6-week break. So much good news has happened in just 1 week. It woke me up from the hibernation. I've been around if you've been following LiquidApps, but I have been away from this channel, but now we are back. I am here with Yves La Rose from EOS Nation. You guys all recognize him, and I'm here with my 2-time guest, Myles Snider from Greymass. I already gave the spoiler in the Everything EOS Telegram channel, but Myles, do you remember the last time you were on this show?
It was in San Francisco, right?
It was in San Francisco. Do you know who you were on the show with?
Kevin Rose.
Yes, sir.
Formerly of EOS New York, currently of Block.One.
Yes. So
yeah, dude, I remember that episode.
It was November 2018. It was the week of the hackathon. It was the day after the hackathon. And we're talking about ECAF, governance, referendum.
That's old school.
So
and Aurora EOS.
Yes. So we're on like a little bit of a history lesson. Going back to a month before then, I have it up here in the tab. October 1st, 2018. We're going on a history tour here, boys. Statement: EOS public blockchain governance. One of the first times Block.One started talking about EOS governance on the EOS public network. And here we are almost 2 years later, and it happened. Block.One finally voted. They did it with 10 million of their tokens. One of the people voted for was Greymass. Sorry, EOS Nation, not on the original list. Let's pull up the list here. Does anyone have the list in front of them, or do I got to read it?
I got it.
All right. Let's shout them out.
You've got Attic Labs, Bitfinex, EOS Cafe Block, EOS Huobi Pool, Rio, Sweden, Nudex, OK Capital, Start EOS, and Greymass.
So that's a hell of a group of people. And they do plan to vote for more. So, Yves, why did they only vote with 10 million tokens this time? And why did they only vote for 10 block producers?
So they did say, Block.One did put out a tweet to say that I believe it's 56 teams met the requirements. So there were 3 requirements. I guess 3 different items that you needed to meet. 56 teams apparently met the requirements, and they will be voting over a 6-week period on rotation. So I would imagine it'll be 10, 10, 10, 10. I don't know how many 10s I've said, 6. And so they'll rotate that. The reason why, and this is based on what I've read in the channels, is to not affect ranking so much and pay grade for certain BPs, right? So if they were to have voted for too much, especially the BPs that were on the cusp, may have been, pushed down, which means it affects them greatly. And so by doing this, it's actually a very, very safe play. It's a good way to, I think, enter the ecosystem. I think it's a wise decision. A lot of thought was put into the decision. And so I'm excited to see kind of, plus I think from a marketing perspective, all right, so we're thinking the EOS New York guys that did that, this is Kevin New York. If you're going to do something, drag it on, get that effect, get people pumping. I think it's just a good move overall.
Mm-hmm. I like it because it's going to be done in phases. So every week, every couple weeks, I don't know what their voting schedule is going to look like, but it's going to be some activity like over.
I think it's going to be
iterations.
6 weeks. So once a week is seemed to be what they were saying. And then we don't know, again, like you said, there are phases, right? So they also mentioned that these are the initial criteria, and that those criteria will change over time. So it is possible that this 6-week period will give them time to come up with and publish the following criteria, I guess, for the next phase of voting. And so that you might see kind of an ongoing rotation of BPs, getting stronger and stronger. Either BPs dropping off the list because they don't meet the following criteria, or BPs, stepping up to the plate and meeting whatever criteria it is that they've requested. So it could work in a way like Wax, where you've got the IG that kind of essentially tells people what to work towards in order to be able to get the votes. So I think it's very positive, very cool. And at the same time, it doesn't affect the ecosystem too much. So it doesn't really come in and shake the whole grounds, right? So it's pretty good.
You brought up the voting requirements.
Yep.
Myles, since you probably are one of the people who applied for this. Yeah. So all of the block producers had to submit something to Block.One. This wasn't done by Block.One themselves. You guys basically sent an application. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't know if that was a strict requirement. In one of their blog posts, they said, if you are a BP, you should reach out to PB at Block.One. And I'm guessing almost everyone did it, but it didn't seem like they said you'll only be considered if this is the case. Like Yves was saying, for the EOS New York guys are now running public blockchain engagement, and they're super thoughtful guys. They've been here since day one. They know all the players in the BP ecosystem, so they've been paying attention. It's not something that's that is just brand new.
I was just trying to create a segue into the voting requirements, but
okay. So actually, on those voting requirements, so there's one in particular that so Block.One did say, and the PPE group did say, if you've got any future requirements that you'd like to put in, or anything about the requirements that you'd like to bring forward, we will essentially take those into consideration in order to change for the next phases. And the third one on the list,
for what it's worth, Greymass did submit a pretty detailed list of what we've been working on.
I would imagine that most people did, because they didn't really say how much they were going to vote for at the time. It only became public later on that they would vote for 10 million. So I think that people at first probably thought that they were going to vote with the full 96 million. So people probably put a lot of effort into this. But one of the requirements is the peer-to-peer node, right? And we did bring up something is, how do you judge peer-to-peer nodes? So there's a couple of issues with that. One is, I may have peer-to-peer nodes. And let's say I have a total peer limit of, 600 peers, which is actually quite a lot. If I'm actually full and you try to peer with me, it'll reject you. So I could potentially not get the requirement, even though I'm providing peer-to-peer, or an endpoint to 600 people. Whereas you, on the other hand, could just load a snapshot, do a 1 request per second, have nobody know it, tell Block.One, and they can connect to it, right? So there's going to be some work to do, I think, on the technical side to be able to strengthen those criteria. But I think that's part of the idea, is over time, those criteria, I would imagine, will get harder, more specific, and then we'll see a shift in the ecosystem for the better, in my opinion.
So as they make it more... Sorry.
I was just going to say that I think it would be nice if they actually did have sort of like ramped up the requirements, and some of them got stricter, because I think it's important to have players in the ecosystem who are super engaged, who have a lot of voting weight to throw around, because then if they say something like, this is a strict requirement for us, if you're not doing it, you're not going to get those votes, that sends a really strong signal. And like, it's, I feel like it's been a while since we've had some players like that in the ecosystem. There have been some proxies that have kind of served that role in the past, but Block.One is obviously, because of their prominence and because of who's behind it and all of that, they can send a really strong signal through their voting and through their requirements.
I think that's what's going to happen over time. But to start off too strong, you'd be shitting on a lot of parades, and that might not be the best PR I guess, start to things, especially because, like Zach said, they said they were going to vote 2 years ago, and the community is kind of in a rough spot right now. So I think a lot of this was very carefully decided, and what I'm hoping is that then it starts to iterate much faster, and then we move to exactly what you're saying. I agree with you. It needs to be very strict conditions, essentially, to be able to get the votes, especially if the number of votes grows over time as well, because it can make or break teams.
I like what they did, and this is why. The whole reason they're participating in governance is to elicit behavior from the block producers. If they add a new requirement that says you have to run a full state history node, then I think we're going to see a lot of BPs spinning up full history nodes for the first time. But I like the way that they're doing it, because think about it from a personal standpoint, psychologically. Would you rather never have gotten something, or to have been given something and then have it taken away? Yeah. It's going to hurt so much worse. So they're voting for over 60 BPs or whatever it was, over 50. And then as the criteria get harder, there's going to be BPs that get the votes taken away from them. So
or they adapt and the ecosystem gets stronger. So yeah, it's a really good strategy.
It's a win-win.
I wonder if Block.One will ever spin up a proxy.
In what sense? Because those are proxies in a way, in a sense that anybody could throw in votes. Anybody can send in votes in those accounts if they want to.
I saw people on Twitter, I don't know who it was, I don't have it in front of me, but they were asking Block.One if there was a way that like someone could just vote for everything that Block.One's voting for. So like a mirror, someone could probably, an independent developer could set up a proxy that just uses an Oracle or something, just mirrors the Block.One voting. And that could be a thing made by the community if they wanted it. I don't know.
Totally.
So one thing I have in front of me, I'm going to pull this screen share up for like the last time, but something in here that hasn't happened yet, we haven't heard much on it, is the EOS Foundation. So what do you guys think of that? The way I interpret it from everything that's been made public, I don't know if it's actually in this paragraph here, but Block.One said that they're not going to accept like voter incentive rewards at first, but they may do that eventually. And I'm assuming that that's going to be how the EOS Foundation is at least funded partially. What kind of timelines do you think we'll see for this to come to fruition? Because I think the foundation is something that has a lot of people in the community excited. Any predictions?
Predictions as far as timelines go, it's very hard to do in this space.
I know.
I don't know for sure. And I don't know exactly what their ideas behind the foundation are, because we've seen different basically theories and ideas behind different types of foundations floated. When we were in Brazil last year, there was a lot of talk around a sort of quasi-independent foundation. I think it could be something that could be very good for the community, but there's only been sort of really sparse hints at what they might be thinking about.
I mean, the best hints, I guess, are the little nuggets Bloomer drops on Twitter every now and again. I don't have any actually in front of me, but what a lot of people want is like being completely decentralized is a good thing and a bad thing. I know EOS gets funded all the time that it's not decentralized enough, but it's almost too decentralized because there's no figurehead leading anything. I'd say in the English speaking world, that guy would be Yves. Actually, it's not Block.One steering the ship here. It's as far as public personas and communication with the community, I don't think anyone does it better than EOS Nation. I just want to give a shout out to EOS Hot Sauce for anyone that missed these everything EOS for a couple weeks in April and May. Hopefully you're getting your fix through the EOS Nation Hot Sauce blog articles and videos. They've been recapping the news every week for as long as I can remember. All right, so one last thing on the votes. Leave it to CoinDesk to FUD the geographic diversity, huh? What's that?
You gotta. They just
somebody sent me a message. I got a little something here. Thank you very much to the person who sent me the message. The only way I could see was actually to get closer to the camera and to show it even more.
Let's take a prediction. What is the CoinDesk headline going to be tomorrow? Now that there's been some votes made, is it going to call out the exchanges that they voted for? What do you think? What do you think the FUD is going to be this week?
I don't think Coinbase cares so much about the exchanges. I think
not Coinbase, CoinDesk.
Oh, CoinDesk. Yeah, because that's right. It's a Berry Pat or whatever, Patty Bear. I would think it's the low number. I think it's going to be the low number, or it's going to be the high numbers. The fact that they said that they're going to vote for 56, or it's going to be one of the VPs that hasn't been selected in the first week, that doesn't have a high self-esteem and that doesn't think they're going to make it in the following week. They're going to provide a quote for Patty Bear to say that it's all rigged, and I'm going full out tinfoil hat in there.
I'll make the prediction that you're right. It's either going to be Patty Baker or Buddy Brady Dale. Baker. We know it's either Brady Dale or Patty Baker can write this article. They're gonna either FUD Block.One friendly voting with 10 million tokens. Let's squash the FUD right now. The reason they did that, we already talked about it, was it would push people out of paid positions. And why do it all at once? We're gonna see. I don't know where you've got that 6 week over the next 6 weeks from, but it's going to be great if every week we get more. It's going to be like
it was the tweet that that Brendan put out when they voted. I'll try to find it.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If Block.One had voted with a bunch of tokens, the headline would be that Block.One is, corrupting governance and doing a corporate takeover.
My favorite thing out of that CoinDesk article was that Bloomer. Let me find that. I'll pull it up on the screen. Bloomer spit some venom at them. So like usually like they try to squash the FUD a little bit, but they don't like throw anything back at them. But on Twitter, Brendan said this whole thread was just sharing the CoinDesk link and about the geodiversity. Brendan says, I'm a relentless supporter of unbiased journalism and free speech, but it's only a matter of time before crypto media outlets that don't adequately disclose conflicts of interest and relegated digital asset holdings get involved in class action litigation. I love that. And what's he talking about here, guys?
Digital Currency Group.
Digital Currency Group. So it's this entity. They literally have an investment in all of the Ethereum ecosystem. They own CoinDesk, so they own their own media outlet. And it's no coincidence that they're constantly like FUDding on a competitor, which is EOS and EOSIO. Even in their most positive articles, they always finish it with like a paragraph that just FUDs things at the very end. I don't know how they do it. It's like a requirement.
Yeah, it's a requirement. Of course, they have to. But it's really only, I mean, it's not all writers, right? So over the past, I'd say 6 months or so, a lot of the writers have reached out, and we've been providing more and more quotes. And we've been featured in more and more CoinDesk articles, Cointelegraph articles. And the writers themselves are actually really nice. And if you take the time to go over information with them, I had Zoom calls with them. I had a phone call with one of them. We stayed on the phone for like 4 hours. And the thing is, they've only been told garbage information, or they haven't taken the time, or they haven't been given the opportunity to take the time to actually learn about EOS. And once they started learning about it, the latest Cointelegraph articles anyways have been way more positive. And they've been reaching out to, I guess, different kinds of people as well. So it really is like those two people that are really FUDsters. The rest of them in general have been much, much, much better.
Yeah, and there's just a level of misinformation, like you said. Like, you know, you talk to people in the wider crypto ecosystem outside of EOS, and a lot of them only catch those bad CoinDesk headlines, or, you know, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And I've often found that I'm surprised when talking to people about just how misinformed they are and how much they, you know, believe certain things to be true about EOS that they really aren't at all.
Yeah, well, just like the other day, there was the Weiss rating. They said that EOS is still congested by ADOS. Like, oh, you didn't see the 150 million actions per day that we're capable of doing, and ADOS is still running, and it doesn't matter anymore. Like you're just going off of old news at this point. But people don't have the opportunity, I guess, to follow EOS day to day, and that's our job, to put out more information, to reach out to the key opinion leaders, to reach out to the media, to be able to educate them. And tides are turning. Like more and more that is happening, but it is definitely difficult because, like you mentioned, Zach, there's no centralized authority in EOS. There's not one place that people can go and just get all of their information, which would obviously make it much easier.
EOS hot sauce.
Hot sauce, yeah, of course. But even that, it's still a wiki publication. There's a lot of information there. It's pretty hard for people to, you know, keep in touch, especially if they're writing an article every couple of months. They're not going to go back and read the 12 hot sauces that they missed, right? So, but at least opening up the communication between the writers and BPs, that's been happening more and more.
My favorite EOS FUD is typically the CPU cost that people still continue to FUD about. People in other side and sister chains, they point back to the high CPU costs. And
they have no excuse because they know. So that's just complete garbage. I think the last time I checked was yesterday, the day before, and it was one for 5,300. That there's no, if you can't afford CPU at this point, it's because you don't know what you're talking about, or you're just doing it on purpose.
So while we're on the topic of FUD, during my 6-week hiatus, I am not bearish on EOS. Like, I just want to point a few things out, and I ruffled a few feathers with a message I made about our next topic. Our next topic is EOS VC, which they had a great announcement this week. We'll get into the good news. But a few weeks ago, I was just a little bit sour on it because I'll just pull up the tweet. So I asked
with the bad.
I asked the EOS community, I said, is EOS VC an accurate description of what the 1 billion fund is investing in? And out of almost 300 votes, almost 67% of the community agreed with me. And the reason is, whenever EOS VC,
200 out of 300.
Yeah. When EOS VC was first announced, it was announced in January 2018, about a month or two before I started this podcast with Rob Finch. EOS VC was probably the top reason out of all. There's a lot of good reasons to get into EOS, but EOS VC was probably the top reason I got into it. And let me know if you can't hear this when I play it.
The program that's going to deploy $1 billion of capital into EOS projects over the course of the next couple of years. We're now making a formal commitment to put the majority of the capital that's come in through the token sale back into the innovators. EOS.
So the point that I kind of got a little bit upset about was, and were you guys able to hear that?
Yep.
Okay. Was he said into EOS projects, and EOS VC over the last couple of years, they've made some great investments. Shout out to FinLab. Out of all of the EOS VCs, I will point to FinLab all day and say that they're doing a great job. They have projects that are on the EOS mainnet. A lot of people don't realize it because they have really good account solutions so that it kind of abstracts the blockchain away from it. But FinLab has invested in Moonlighting, which has 750,000 users, and they're all interfacing with EOS mainnet in some way. And then also Upland. Upland works on the EOS mainnet. You just don't realize it because everything's abstracted from the users. And that's how I think everything's going to be moving forward. And there might even be other projects, but we haven't seen, I guess, I don't know. It hasn't been in your face. I don't think it's been like pushed that they're supporting the mainnet. And then when you look at the communication from Block.One over the last couple of months, especially, it's all about EOSIO. And EOSIO is great. Amazing. But this is everything EOS. I love the side chains, but I got started with EOS. EOS is the mothership, and it kind of sucks whenever it's being ignored, and it feels like it's being ignored. But this
also, it's not just EOSIO, but there's even been investments into non-EOS mainnet, or sorry, non-EOSIO projects.
There've been investment in Ethereum projects.
Yep,
but again, the idea was it changed from being EOS VC to just being a traditional VC. So the idea wasn't let's invest in EOS projects. It's just let's invest in projects that will return us on our investment so that we can keep going as a company, which wasn't what was said in that video you shared. And I think that's what ruffles feathers.
But let me just pull it up. So when did this come out? Like a couple days ago?
2 days ago.
The grants?
Yeah, so
the 34 grants.
Back in December, they announced a new thing in the grants program. So up until December 2019, EOS VC was treated like a traditional VC. Like all they care, like from what I understand, from what I've been told secondhand, was they're most interested in returns. They didn't care about the EOS mainnet. They cared a little bit about EOSIO, but they're mostly just interested in getting equity and getting return on their capital, which is fine if you're a traditional VC and you weren't kind of promising to grow EOS and back whenever it was first announced. But on May 28th, they released the name of 34 different projects, all building on EOSIO, that were all rewarded 50% grants. And as far as I understand, these grants are no strings attached. Nobody gave up any tokens. No one gave up any equity. They all had to have business plans, obviously. They had to apply for these. But it's kind of like seed funding for some of these projects. And some of them are more mature projects that's kind of just to give them a nudge to start toying with EOSIO. But some of these projects you'll recognize, some of them you won't. A lot of them you won't, actually. You'll have to click into all of them. So Geno Bank, that was the one that won the hackathon, right? Is that?
No.
That's not Geno Bank?
No, Geno Bank, I think they released the fact that Geno Bank won the 50K grant a couple months ago because it was timely with COVID. Because isn't Geno Bank, didn't they say that they shifted to help with COVID research or something like that? So I think it's the same thing. I don't think it's the hackathon one. I might be wrong. The hackathon one is Nougat, actually. Nougat won the San Francisco
They won
hackathon.
the San Fran, but the Gene one won like the finals.
Oh, is that Geno Bank won that? I don't recall. I should know this.
I don't. It was Gene something. I don't have it in front of me. That's what happens when I'm not as prepared as typical. But another one on there. I'm not going to leave the screenshot so you guys could keep seeing us talk. Karma was on there, which Karma, as we all know, has a token. So this is another big thing here that EOS VC and I think Pummel's on here too, and they have a token also. So one of the other things that we heard from EOS VC for the first year, at least year and a half, almost 2 years of its existence, was that they wouldn't invest, as far as this is all secondhand, they wouldn't invest in projects with tokens. But they just proved that to be false here moving forward, at least, or at least for the grant program with Karma and Pummel both getting grants. What were you guys' thoughts on these grants? Did you have a chance to look at any of these companies? Did any stand out to you?
I knew personally of about 6 of them. There's some really good projects in there. There were some that were surprising because they're no longer on the EOS mainnet chain. They're not even running on EOS. That's kind of interesting. There's a couple of them that are centralized or that have also received funding for just generalized. So actually I thought that was interesting because they're not necessarily EOS IO focused or even EOS focused, but they're just general crypto blockchain focused. So I think one of them is like a custodial wallet that enables you to hold a bunch of different funds, EOS included. So I thought that that's actually kind of cool because part of the idea is we do need to reach out to the outside of EOS community, which I think they did with one of them. But that didn't, that did ruffle some feathers because people thought, well, it makes no sense, but different strategies.
I think what would be nice to see is just a very specific set of guidelines from EOSVC about what exactly the criteria are. Because I also think that grants are something that are really effective, especially for funding the types of projects that maybe aren't going to get traditional VC funding or are more sort of community-based projects that don't have a business model or a token or things like that. So I'd like to see those grants doled out maybe a little bit more specifically to those kinds of projects because that money I think will go further. But at the very least, it would be nice to have really crystal clarity around what the criteria are.
Well, they did. So Zach, I don't know if you were going to pull up, but they had originally mentioned that they were going to pay about $3 million worth of grants. So it is possible that this is just the first round. It is possible that even the 3 mil is not even the end of it. And that again, like anything else, it'll refine over time. I'm just really excited because they talked about it. They said they were going to do it. They actually did it. And to 34 projects in one shot, that's a lot of money going out. So they gave let's say we just multiply it, 1.7 million in here. And then they paid 200,000 to somebody else yesterday or this morning. So like Block.One is actually now starting to invest a lot of that capital
back into the community.
And that's what's interesting for me, I think, is they're now, I think after that SEC decision, they're now able to actually start moving in the direction that I think they always wanted to move in. It just takes time. You're fighting this traditional system. So is there anything else that they could do better? Is there tweaks that they could have done? Sure, but I think it's a step in the right direction. I want to call the voting, right? It's just the beginning. Hopefully, it's just the beginning.
I need to call out a few more projects that are like visible in the EOS community. So WordProof is a big one. Shout out Sebastian, man. This guy's a workhorse. Deeply integrated into the WordPress community. Been there like 10 years. He shared the stage with, I don't know his name, but the founder of WordProof at a conference recently. The writing company or the writer company, which is, we all know them as EOS Writer. Great group of guys there. Kenny, Shaney, Sean, and anyone I missed. And then Talk Show. I forget what Talk Show was called back in the day, but it's that, I forget his name. Talk Chain, I think it used to be called.
Yeah, Talk Chain, I think what it is. Yes.
It's like a governance tool. It's
the same thing with like the EOS Writer. It's called, I think they wrote it as the EOS Company, which might be the legal name because it became the crypto writer, which englobes EOS Writer and now is the writer company. So it might be the same thing with Talk Chain.
So Myles, I think my request, if anyone's listening, would be like you said, tell us the criteria. Like, what are you looking for? Even if it's different from VC to VC compared to the grant program, just like, what are you looking for? And that way we could stop speculating on it and just know. So out of this conversation,
one thing I will say though about this grant system that's really nice is that one of the, I don't know if you could call it an issue, but one of the things that was going on with the EOSVC was that they were tending to fund bigger companies and they were taking very much venture scale bets. They were investing several $1 million or more. They tended to be in more established companies. They tended to be in companies that had a track record. That's awesome. But as we all know, the crypto ecosystem is made up of scrappy developers, and to see these kind of smaller teams get some funding is pretty cool and something that I've wanted to see for a while.
I agree. Like that 50K can go a long way. Like more value might be created out of these $50,000 grants than a $2 or $3 million investment to another larger company that can't move as fast. Doesn't have the desire to do it. Like it's all.
Well,
like,
they're just setting up the different tiers, right? Like this is just part of the funding ecosystem. A grant program, there's a bounty program, which I think we're going to segue into. And then you've got the larger VC program. So they're just different tiers of an overall funding strategy. And we're seeing it all come into place in a very short period of time.
Before moving to the next topic, which is the bounties, I just want to point out, so one VC did come out publicly on one of these tweets, FinLab did, and they explained outright what their criterias are for their investments. And they've done a lot of equity investments into large companies, 7 figures or more. Stefan from FinLab, he's the managing director of FinLab EOS VC. He's on the board of directors at FinLab, the bigger FinLab. And he said, we from FinLab have in all of our FinLab EOS VC fund investment agreements implemented EOSIO adoption and integration clauses and this is hard to read, in addition integrated milestone payments connected to these clauses and conversion. So their agreements specifically say to all of their investment companies, you have to, if you're not on EOSIO today, you have to have it on your roadmap to get there tomorrow. And if you don't hit the milestones, different pieces of the funding might get pulled or not delivered. So I like to see that. That's the kind of transparency I want to see. I might not always agree with everything that Block.One or EOS VC does, but it's just like the lack of transparency and then the lack of communication up until recently. That's what really bothered me was the lack of engagement. I miss the days whenever Brendan and Dan would hang out with us on Telegram. I don't think those days are ever going to come back. I know they've been good. Bloomer's been pretty good on Twitter, but Dan's been in like hibernation. He's in a longer hibernation than I was on YouTube.
Actually, on that, we just saw, and we just made a tweet yesterday. We saw that Dan merged a PR in EOSIO for the first time in EOS for the first time in a very, very long time. And so people were speculating on what that might be. And that was really interesting because, like you said, we haven't seen him very much. And specifically within Block.One, he hasn't really been, sure, he's been, coding privately in the private repo, but we haven't seen his name in the public repo in a very long time. Well, so know that it's something.
Dan being in hibernation doesn't worry me because I know that man doesn't stop
not a
coding.
thing.
He's working on something.
Yeah. But when you see his name publicly tied to something for the first time in a very long time, it's going to be something very special.
Totally.
When I talked to Dan, I got to talk to him in person at the Bloxburg conference back in November, and he said something like he hadn't touched code in over a year or something. And then a couple months ago, I heard that, I think we talked about it on this show, was that someone said that he was coding for the first time in a very long time. And now we saw it publicly. They pushed a piece of a repo public that he was on there. So.
Well, it'll be interesting to see sort of what Dan's contributions are between both Block.One and Voice, especially now that they announced that Voice was really officially its own separate company funded by Block.One. Like when I saw that announcement, that was my big question, was because I know that Voice is very much Dan's baby, but Dan is still the CTO of Block.One, and sort of how he's going to split time, or if he does have, specific ideas and implementations, how those are going to cross over.
Mm-hmm. And as far as Voice, I don't have the link up, but they're hiring like crazy. If anyone is able to move to New York City and you're in this industry, I highly recommend you check that out. Let's see.
The last post I saw was, if you know of the 98 Bulls and you knew who the Worm was, please apply.
What?
So if you know who the Worm is in the 98 Bulls team, then please apply and you automatically, I believe, get a job under Salah.
I've heard.
Are you as confused as I am by that, Yves, or do you actually understand that?
No, I know who it is, and I think I know why he says that or what it means. So the Worm was Dennis Rodman, and basically what it was Dennis Rodman was always under the net, and he was I think he had the record for the most rebounds, or he was always one of the highest rebound taking players. And so I think the idea is you have to be in the gut of it, and you got to be taking shots, and you got to be like really, really, really in the mix. I think that's the kind of person that they're looking for. But I thought it was really interesting because it really gave personality. Like since Salah has been there, his Twitter posts are way more personable, let's say, than traditional CEO. Like I think he was putting, he was cooking over the last couple of weeks, and he was putting pictures of what he was cooking for dinner, that kind of thing. So you can tell that if he's going to be running a social media platform, you got to be able to connect with the person, and he seems to be doing that already. So that actually gets me really excited.
Totally.
We're not going to talk about it a lot because I don't have a lot to say, but like we're talking about all these community initiatives that have happened since like the 2020 alone. So they brought on EOS New York to basically lead their public blockchain engagement team. We're seeing the fruits of that now, like boom, 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 all these press releases coming out. It kind of seems like it has Kevin's hands on it.
Is it them, or are we just assuming is them?
I'm giving them I don't know. No one's told me.
You're giving them credit, right? EOS New York, you're getting the credit.
I don't care. Whatever.
I've also operated under that assumption.
Yeah. I've also noticed that Bloomer tweeted recently, I forget what he wrote, but he wrote the word decentralized with a Z. And every other time that Bloomer's written decentralized, he spells it with an S, like the British spelling. So I had the impression that someone wrote a tweet for him. It could have been anyone though at Block.One. They have an entire marketing team. But moving on. So all these initiatives.
Zach, you're the king of noticing the small things that seem to fly by everyone else. I love it.
That's how you get the information. It's those little clues.
That's why the show has always been good. I always learn something.
So things are getting better. They brought on EOS New York. They've brought on some prominent community members over the last year. Ash Oro from EOS Radio is there now. I think he's a project. I don't know what he does. I think he's doing something projects. Mark Woods, he's VP of product now. He was a prominent community member back in the day. Helped me organize the B1 June party the day before with Rob. But there's also the ongoing hackathon. So one of my biggest complaints since the hackathons ended in 2018 was there haven't been any hackathons sponsored by Block.One. So that all changed this month also. There's been an ongoing virtual hackathon all month. The Coding for Change Challenge, another $100,000 is going to be awarded to the winner of this hackathon. The contest ends June 1st. So there's probably teams, good luck to all of the teams watching this that are in the final rounds, getting your pitches ready. But not only did Block.One award $1.5 or $6 million in grants over the last couple of months that they announced today, but they also are going to give out another $100,000 to the winner of the hackathon in a couple of days. And today, a $200,000 bounty was announced, and I'll let one of you guys talk about it.
Take it away, Yves.
Take it.
All right. So there was a challenge that was put out, I believe it was February 8th or so a couple of months ago, I think 3 months ago, maybe a little bit earlier than that, in order to be able to run a full EOS virtual machine, or sorry, an Ethereum virtual machine inside of EOS. And somebody that we all know submitted his application, and finally it was announced today that he is the winner. And so from EOS Cafe Block, Saeed Jeffrey just won today $200,000 US for his submission. And I think you can go see the GitHub. I think it's like version 3. Final submission. He's been working on this, coding away now for months. So huge shout out to Saeed, because this is massive. Like if you think about this, we even heard very, very shortly after the news started sharing out in China when they were waking up, and some people reached out and they said they're developers and they were helping people come onto the blockchain. Those people ended up choosing Ethereum instead of EOS, but now they're complaining that gas fees are too high. And they wish that they'd actually, chosen EOS instead. Bloop, Saeed comes in and just goes, yep, wrap her around your little application. Don't need to do very much. Bloop, now you're on EOS. And that's huge for DeFi. That's huge for so many of the applications that chose Ethereum, kind of had no choice at the time because either it was pre-EOS or, just didn't know that EOS would be able to satisfy their needs. And now you'll just be able to take that, run it on EOS, while not having them do a lot of work in order to do the port. It's massive because we know that especially a lot of the DeFi applications are still very much in Ethereum. And that's all. I mean, there are other teams that submitted, so there are other solutions out there, but the one that won it was the one from Saeed. So congratulations, Saeed. Yeah,
everyone watching, sure.
Round of applause.
That's huge.
It's huge. It's huge.
It's such a big step in the right direction for interoperability. I mean, that's what we're doing at LiquidApps. We're constantly trying to build tools that makes it easier. Like Ethereum's one of the places too, is making it easy to port your application or as little code changes as possible. With what Saeed built here, you do not have to modify your Solidity code. You could just kind of port it into an EOSIO contract and get all of the benefits of EOSIO. So
and you
that
could
is
still
huge.
retain the liquidity that you have on Ethereum. So like there's so many different, just like we saw with EOS, that new applications are, let's say, building the main part of their code, let's on a permission chain or a private chain or something like that, but they'll do the settlement layer on EOS, or they'll do the account layer on EOS. Once you're able to have those essentially like building blocks, you're going to be able to choose whichever blockchain you want, and then take the feature that is required that matches the blockchain functionality, and kind of have a mishmash of what's best for your end business case. And basically this particular tool is a huge component of that. It's massive. It's really, really big.
I have some tools coming out in a little bit. Like maybe not me personally, but
we've got some tools coming out in the.
I'm not going to say too much. Actually, if we're going to talk about anyone's projects on this call, I want to talk about Greymass and the Anchor wallet. Why don't we get into that?
So, as some people have probably seen, we've been following Greymass. We've been working on something called Anchor for quite some time now. If you were around in the earliest days of EOS, you probably remember EOS Voter, which was the first desktop wallet that was available to the EOS community. In fact, Dan actually recommended it right after the chain launched as something to use if you wanted to access things. And that was a desktop wallet that was created by the Greymass team that at the time was really intended to just provide, fill a hole in the market and provide a solution that was needed when there wasn't much else out there. And it was a great tool. I think, probably all of us were users of EOS Voter, but there wasn't a ton of consideration for sort of UI and UX and some of the bigger features that our team wanted to build. And that's what ultimately became with Anchor. So Anchor has everything that you have in EOS Voter, if that's what you've been using, but also a bunch more features, some pretty major integrations, as well as a much updated, it's completely rebranded. It's called Anchor now. It's got a much better UI. It's way more intuitive. The tools are easier to use. And probably the biggest difference is that you can now use Anchor like you've used Scatter or Token Pocket or some of these other applications in the past, some of these other wallets, and that you can interact directly with applications. So previously, EOS Voter was really just a standalone desktop wallet that allowed you to do things like cast your votes, manage your resources, use Rex, things like that. Now it really does everything. And there are a few applications already that support Anchor. So you can sort of log in using Anchor. And we've got a lot more coming on soon. And then we've also got a mobile version of Anchor that is kind of a game changer as far as I'm concerned. It's currently in beta for iPhone users. Android is being worked on. And let me pause there and get some questions, but we can dive into any of these things.
I just want to point
actually before you do, like, he sold himself, so he sold the Greymass team short. So before the EOS Voter existed, you had to use Kleos in order to interact with EOS. And so despite him saying that the UI or whatever wasn't great, it was amazing. Your alternative was Kleos, number one. Number two, I forget. So go to use that because I forget what the other one was.
So shout out to Aaron on our team who really led the development here. I am as impressed as anyone with it.
I remember what the other thing is. So you said that there's a few applications that interact with it. It's only been out for a couple of weeks, and there are a lot of applications that interact with it at this point. The integration between Anchor and Block Explorer's Anchor and Games applications is coming out extremely rapidly. When you take into account that prior to this, it would take a while before there were integration with anything new like that. So huge shout out to Greymass for that.
Yeah, and we've been talking to a lot of teams, and make no mistake, there's plenty of big integrations coming down the line. I think within a pretty short period of time, all of the major applications on EOS are going to support it because we're talking to a lot of them, and there's a lot of users out there who are switching to Anchor who love it because it's awesome.
I just wanted to point out that you had a really big supporter the other day here. You got the retweet from Bloomer with comment. He gave more love to you guys at Greymass and Anchor than Scatter ever got. And I love the Scatter team. I love what Scatter did. So without EOS Voter, when the mainnet launched, we probably couldn't have unlocked the mainnet because no one would have been able to vote. But then in the first year and a half of the EOS mainnet, Scatter carried it. Without Scatter, we would not like be where we are today. I do not want to take anything away from the Scatter team, but Anchor is the Scatter killer. I said it. The one feature it's missing, and we talked about this before the call. And Aaron, if you're watching, or you'll probably get the message from Myles, we need to have a way to import our Scatter keys into the Anchor wallet. I want to be able to like download like the backup file of, I have the backup like encrypted file I can get from Scatter. I want to have a way, if it's possible, to just import all of my keys into Anchor. And that would be awesome because I've got like 50 accounts.
One click button. That's what I want. I already asked Aaron. I think I've asked him 2 or 3 times. Like, this needs to be priority. It's extremely important. I know so many people that love the experience with Anchor. They want to be able to switch over. They want to have, even if it's just for having an alternative to Scatter in case something happens to Scatter. Like, you want it decentralized. You want it to have kind of a fail safe. Do that, Aaron. Huge thing. A lot of people are going to switch over, myself included.
Aaron's watching, so I'm sure he's definitely getting the message. But
while we're on the topic of wallets too, going back to EOS VC and FinLab, my favorite VC, they invested in, I don't remember what the team's called, but the team that's behind the Wombat Wallet. I that's another wallet I really like, is the Wombat Wallet. And the reason I like it is because they went old school and they went with the Chrome extension for the desktop, and then they also have iOS and mobile. But my favorite part about the Wombat Wallet is that it gives you a free full EOS account when you sign up through them. So if someone's brand new to the EOS ecosystem, we know how complicated a new account can be. They manage your resources for you and give you a free account, but you can't export your keys unless you pay. It's only half an EOS, which is amazing. It's a great project, and EOS VC invested in them. So I assume that it's going to get matured further. So that's another exciting thing on the wallet front. And also shout out to DApp Account, who, if you've been following the LiquidApps stuff and what we've been doing, I've been talking about DApp Account. They're using Liquid Chains. We got cross-chain accounts coming. It's going to be a one single account that can kind of interact with any EOSIO chain. You watch the LiquidApps stuff for that. I'm not going to show myself too hard on this episode. And it's mostly Ramon Binlish and Blockstart and DApp Solutions product. So I'll let them talk about it on here another time, but lots of innovation happening in the wallet space. So many good things.
That's a cool thing that Wombat's doing with you have to pay to get your keys out. That's kind of an interesting way to cover costs. We are working on some account creation stuff to make that really easy and really intuitive for users, especially with the Anchor mobile wallet that we're working on. And I also think that a lot of people are going to be pleasantly surprised at the experience of using the Anchor mobile wallet, because it is different from what you've seen with Lynx or Token Pocket or Meet.One or some of these other mobile wallets that are kind of designed, they're designed more like WeChat. It's everything in one. There's a browser. All the dApps take place within the app. Ours is an authenticator, and it's really, it's a little bit more simplistic and really designed to be the place that stores your keys and allows you to interact with any of these applications, and Anchor is a signer. And so it's a different experience, but it's a really good experience, a really good UX, and the sort of interaction between desktop and mobile, eventually being able to sign multi-sigs between the two, opens up a lot of cool stuff for account security, especially when you take into account things like use of biometrics, the secure enclave, all that.
So I haven't seen it yet. I haven't used every wallet. I've used the ones I just mentioned, but who's going to be the first wallet that lets us use the UB keys for a 2FA?
I'll place a bet. So I'll go on the predict market. Little shill here for predict market. And if there were that question posed on the predict market, I would say it's Anchor.
I hope so.
If there's a team, I think, that has the knowledge, because the UB key component of things, first of all, it's not even enabled on mainnet, so it's not going to be there anytime soon. But if there's going to be a team that I think is capable of doing it and that's still around at the time, it's going to be Greymass. That's my call.
We've talked about it internally. We had that discussion actually recently, because people on our team use UB keys.
Yep.
Aaron and I were at B1 June. We got the UB keys. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely something we're considering. It's as far as the prioritization list goes right now, we're trying to listen to the community people like you guys are requesting features, which is awesome. And we're trying to sort those obviously by priority. Right now, YubiKey is not a thing that a lot of community members are talking about. You're kind of the first person outside of our internal group that's brought it up.
But you can't even use it if you wanted to, because it's not enabled yet. Just like Authenticator, it's still very new right now.
It's one of those nerdy things that you're right. Like the mass markets really don't care. And that's why it doesn't really have a sense of urgency behind it, but it is
They
something.
need to do Android before they do YubiKey. They're shutting out like 88% of the whole market right now.
Android is in the works.
Someone in the chat, let's see his name. They asked if we talked about Block.One voting yet. You might want to start at the beginning if you're asking that question. We're talking about all the other great stuff happening in EOS right now. Let's just go through.
Actually, we should give a shout out. You got again from Nova Crypto. You got another 15 Swiss francs, so it's like 15, 16 US dollars again.
Nice, thanks, man. I actually got to confirm with Google. I got this PIN number. I got to confirm I own this account so I can even withdraw that money.
And you got a $2 from Cam Moshi.
Thanks for shouting them out. I'm a bad host. I would have forgot. Yeah, so we talked about all our stuff. Is there anything going on in EOS Nation you want to talk about before I run through all of the other community stuff happening on EOS to look forward to?
Can I bring up one more thing about Anchor really quick?
Yeah.
So another reason for everyone to go download Anchor if you haven't done it yet, especially if you're an EOS Voter user, upgrade to Anchor. You're going to get everything you had in EOS Voter plus a bunch more. One of my favorite features is that Greymass Fuel is directly integrated into the wallet. So you're getting free transactions simply by being a user of the wallet. And it's super convenient and it's super awesome.
And Greymass Fuel works for Proxy for Nation. Greymass Fuel is
Correct.
the one sponsoring the free transactions that essentially you get by proxying for Proxy for Nation. So a little shout out there.
So
I think we were the first ones. Actually, we were the first integration of Greymass Fuel. Yeah, we were like the beta of. And it worked right away. So it wasn't really a beta. It was like essentially it worked out right from the gate.
So,
yeah, I mean, so like there's quite a few applications now, whether it's Blocks or Nudex or EOS Nation that are allowing users free transactions in various ways. But the cool thing about Anchor is that if you visit an application that doesn't have that already integrated, you get it through Greymass Fuel.
Guys, what about IDOS, man? I thought the EOS mainnet was congested and expensive. What's going on here?
So the way it works is that you can blacklist contracts, or you can whitelist contracts or actions, right? And so you can, because at some point you bring up something really interesting. So a lot of the wallets were providing free transactions, and ADOS users were using those wallets in order to mine. So EOS, the mainnet itself, decided not to blacklist those contracts. It's futile anyways. But the wallet itself can censor, and that's not blockchain censorship, right? Because it's not at the network level. And so I think going forward, the reason why I bring it up is going forward, the wallet that you interact with will basically help provide you with security by choosing what you can or cannot do, and probably letting you do things if you really want to, but giving you a warning. And I think that's going to be a huge responsibility of the wallets, that the trust relationship that you're going to have with your wallet provider is going to be really, really key, because that's your first place of interaction with the blockchain is going to be there. But the advantage of that is then it abstracts the blockchain itself, the base layer protocol itself from the user, and we get one space removed. I think what we're going to see over time is that not only is it going to be one, space removed user to a base protocol, I think it's going to be two spaces removed, where even the application developers are going to use, let's say, Greymass tools, or going to use people who interact with the protocol, but they themselves don't even do so, which means the user is like two spaces removed from, which then just increases the UX and the UI capabilities for the user. And I think Greymass is at the forefront, pioneering with Greymass Fuel. I think it's just the first thing that we see from the Greymass team that's going to, in my opinion, move us towards that long-term vision.
Yeah, the Greymass Fuel, our signing protocol, Anchor Mobile, they all fit into a bigger vision of what we call it the DApp layer, but it's basically a bunch of tools that would have the ultimate goal of making, interacting with the blockchain super easy, super intuitive, and super secure for the user, and a great experience for the developer as well. So there's plenty more coming from our way.
The sexy topic I want to hit on before we close out, and that's, well, we got a couple, but let's get into EOS DeFi.
You got another $5, by the way. That's DeFi right there.
That is well, it's CFI.
I think you're up to like $22. And actually, there was one question that we should probably answer because the person asked, I just saw it. Does vote token count increase over 6 week also? I think that was the B1 voting. I don't know, Cam. Do you guys know? Like, does B1, does the 10 million increase after 6 weeks? I don't think so, but I don't know.
think so. They haven't confirmed anything along those lines as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I have no idea.
They did say initially they'd only vote with 10 million, which makes it seem like it'll increase with time, but they didn't give any timeline for that.
And that 10 million is very specific. So if people ask why 10 million, so they have, Block.One has, 100 million tokens. Originally, they no longer have 100 million, but that were vested over 10 years. They did buy some RAM with about 4 or 3.2 million. I don't recall the exact amount. I think it's 3.2 million EOS. And so they combined some of the tokens that were left basically no longer vested. Plus they moved some EOS, I think about 4 million to make that 10 million pot. So they are voting with only at this time with unvested tokens, essentially. But they could vote with those vested tokens if they wanted to. But they wouldn't be able to split them up. So that's it. So it's kind of, there's no in between. There's no in between.
You're
so
right.
It was either they voted with 96, they voted with 10, or any combination that I guess between 16 and 10.
I forgot about that. So 16, they can't split up. A lot of their votes can't be split up then. So we're not going to see like a bunch of buckets at 10 mil. We're going to.
You can't, you would be able to see that once a year, but you wouldn't be able to see, for example, right now, they wouldn't be able to vote with 20 million tokens. There's no combination that allows for that. Or 30 or 40 or 50, it'd be 96 or any combination between, I guess, 0 and 16 at this point.
Interesting. So talked about Anchor, talked a little bit about LiquidApps. I know EOS Nation's very involved in the DeFi space on EOS. It's only getting better. I just want to point out old news that came out like May 12th, and I missed it until recently. Apparently some other people in the know knew, but EOS Finex, which I talked about a lot last year, launched like last July, I believe. And I wasn't I was super excited leading up to it. Then when it launched, it kind of wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But I think everything I wanted EOS Finex to be last year sounds like it's going to happen this year. So I tweeted about this yesterday after I found it. I just want to read a quote from Paulo, the CTO of Bitfinex. And he says, "We believe that providing the EOS community with the Bitfinex liquidity pool via the EOS Finex platform will have a major impact on the ecosystem and users who prefer to trade on a non-custodial platform. Liquidity has been a major issue for DEX, and we hope that by providing the best of both, a centralized and decentralized exchange will be able to grow the EOS community." This is huge. It's enormous. Like the biggest thing lacking on any DEX. It doesn't matter if you're talking. You look at Yves, look at all awkward because he can't say much. I'll talk. I have no affiliation with any of this stuff. This is what I was expecting last year. This is why I was like hyping up EOS Finex last year, because Bitfinex is the top trading platform. Might not have the highest volume, but they have the best infrastructure and tooling out of anybody, and that includes Coinbase.
I believe they have the highest liquidity out of any exchange. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but
they've got all these trading tools. They've got like this honey thing. Like they've got all this stuff for institutional traders. And I saw hints of this happening last year, but it wasn't ready, I guess. But now it's like, look at any DEX. If you wanted to make a big order, like tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, you can't do it on a DEX. On new DEX, even if you're just doing.
So there is an exchange that currently exists, and that's been existing for more than a year. I think it's been there for a year and a half in the EOS ecosystem, which has this particular model. Really? It doesn't have the liquidity that Bitfinex will be able to provide, but it does have a lot of liquidity. Just people don't know about it.
Shout it out.
So Whalex is the hybrid. So it is it is a DEX. However, their order book is centralized. That has advantages. They do have Bitcoin and Ethereum pairings for a lot of the tokens, I guess specifically for EOS, and that's where a lot of the liquidity comes from. So the advantage now, though, with Bitfinex is there's way more liquidity, and their order book is obviously much scales bigger. But we do have a hybrid functional DEX that's been running and operating for a very long time. EOS FinX is just going to take that to a whole new level. It is, yeah, I can't say much more. Should be amazing, amazing, amazing.
Well, while we're on the topic of EOS FinX, let's talk about EOS DT and them decentralizing their contract. We talked about that. That's public, right? I don't know. I don't have all the BPs memorized that are on it. Who wants to cover that and call out the BPs?
So the 4 BPs. So this is a project that's been going on for a very long time. Equilibrium Framework has the EOS DT token. It's an over collateralized style stable coin on EOS.
Like
and then they have the NUT token. And the original plan, the original framework was always to decentralize and I guess to give away the keys to those contracts. And because this is a functionality that we have in EOS with the permission sets, etc. And finally, last week, after 8 very long months of working towards this, after multiple audits, after a lot of work, a lot of background work, 4 teams now have access to those keys. Equilibrium can no longer change the EOS DT contract nor the NUT token contract unless they pair up with one of the 4 teams, or actually it's 2 of the 4 teams. So EOS Canon, EOS FinX or Bitfinex, Binance, and EOS Nation. And so as of last week, Equilibrium no longer has control of the owner key nor the active key.
So what that tells me, just from here and just this little tidbit, is like Binance is getting involved with EOS. Like they're not just like bystanders. Like we one of the last episodes we did together, Yves, we talked about the staking program. They're paying staking rewards for users on their platform. They've got multiple lockup periods, multiple percentages. A few episodes ago, you were talking about how someone from their team is very active in one of the public channels. They're making moves. Like they're not passive, like EOS block producers by any means. So I'm excited to see the future of that.
You're talking about 2 of the biggest players in the crypto ecosystem,
Bitfinex and Binance.
Yeah. And they have dedicated teams dedicated to EOS. Like I can tell you, without going into so much detail, we've been working with both teams for a very long time now. There are tons of projects that they're working on. The gravitas and the pull and the attention that they can bring to EOS is massive. And so it is very important for them to understand how EOS works properly. And because they're BPs, they need to know like the core designs and the core functionalities, right? So if we look at other chains where exchanges have stake, and DPoS chains especially, where they can potentially affect governance, but because they're so far removed, somebody was saying earlier, you know, they get kind of a debrief from somebody, and they essentially do an action that can completely change the chain in which they're making the action in, but they're so far removed that they're not really intimate with what's happening. The advantage with EOS is these are BPs as well. They are intimate with what's happening. It might not be their specialty. Of course, they're doing other things, but they do have dedicated teams towards this. And so it just makes the mainnet that much stronger. And in terms of long-term growth, it just makes mainnet that much more secure as well. And we're seeing these teams start to deploy some really massive tools and some really massive, I guess, features that are going to be leveraging EOS, the mainnet itself.
EOS is the liquidity chain. Like that is what it is. You have the 2 biggest exchanges in the world as block producers very actively.
Got like 4 of the 6 largest exchanges in the world, all very active on the mainnet.
Call them out.
So, I mean, I guess some of them were in the votes that Block.One voted for. So you got Hobie. Hobie single-handedly brought like an uncountable, well, it is countable, I know how much, but so much investment in EOS prior to launch. They themselves single-handedly brought EOS to the Chinese market. Then you've got OKX. They also jumped onto the scene, started doing some governance, started doing some outreach to BPs, and took their voting to a whole new mechanism, a whole new level. Then you've got ZB, which is another exchange. They weren't on the voting list. You got Binance, you got Bitfinex, and then you've got the decentralized exchanges, right? Nudex was on the list as well. Nudex was, I think, up and running a few weeks after the mainnet launch. Imagine EOS without Nudex.
I couldn't.
Like you were talking earlier about imagine EOS without Scatter. Imagine EOS without Nudex. Nudex was the counterparty to the centralized exchanges, and they've done tremendous work, and they've brought so much, so much liquidity, but so much, I guess, promotion to so many of those small teams on EOS. Like the exchanges play key roles in the ecosystem. They're extremely, extremely important.
It's the key piece of infrastructure that any smart contract platform really needs. And yeah,
it's the first point of contact for most users. It's the first point of contact for regulators. It's the first point of contact for any large token holder that's looking for security. Anyways, very, very important.
DeFi
I think that B1 recognized that.
Is getting stronger.
DeFi is getting stronger.
On top of that, we still have Shintai, who is constantly releasing and building and doing things. We have Vigor going into production soon. We've got a new project called EOS Options. I'll talk about that another week whenever I have more time to talk about this, because this project came out of nowhere to me personally, and it is very feature rich, and I would be happy to explain it on a future episode. But we got to move on from.
Can I give a quick shout out to just one more project that I'm excited about?
Shout them out.
Disclosure: I am an advisor, but Predict by Everett.
Yes,
it does kind of fit into the DeFi.
I call it DeFi. It's surely DeFi.
Yeah, DeFi for sure.
It totally is DeFi. And yeah, Predict 2.0 is now live. People can visit it at it's predict.everpedia.org. And you can create markets now. You can participate in markets. And what's cool about this, and this is what is uniquely enabled by blockchain, is that you can have markets that just don't exist anywhere else. So the other day, there was a market about whether or not SpaceX's Dragon would dock with the International Space Station. So people are able to participate in these super niche markets. There was a market about whether or not B1 would actually vote before June 20th. And so it's pretty cool right now. There's a lot of stuff that's uniquely catered to the EOS community. There's a lot of stuff that's just unique in general, and those markets don't really exist elsewhere. And I can encourage people to go check it out.
And while you're talking, I remembered P tokens. So shout out to P tokens being pegged Bitcoin to EOS, and it's able to be collateralized on EOS DT. I think Vigor is trying to be able to collateralize it too. I heard that on Bitfinex, you'll be able to like exchange, like if you have Bitcoin on Bitfinex, whenever you go to withdraw it, I think this is secondhand, but I think you'll be able to withdraw and decide if you want to withdraw it to PBTC, to your EOS or Ethereum wallet, or just regular Bitcoin. Eve knows he's not in his head. He was not the source, or else I wouldn't.
And P tokens are actually looking for. So if some of you out there are have infrastructure or are block producers or block producers on other chains, P tokens is looking for the P network for validators. Go check out. I think they just released a Medium article today, I believe. Well, so if you want to help secure Bitcoin, decentralized finance on EOS, you have a chance right now.
Okay. We've got a really exciting project next on my list. It's not DeFi. It's actually more exciting than DeFi to everyone except maybe us. But we got Blankos. We haven't heard about I haven't talked about Blankos in a really long time, because after like the South by Southwest thing last year, they got kind of quiet. They made a tweet. June 5th. The exclusive Blankos block party at the IGN Summer of Gaming event. You'll see it right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse pointer, but under gameplay here on the bottom left, the Blankos block party, they're going to be releasing the exclusive trailer debut, exclusive gameplay there. I don't have a whole lot of information here, but I have little rumors and birdies. I know someone talked to Rudy at the NFT conference in New York City in like February, and he was told that there is an EOS mainnet component still to Blankos. I don't know what it is. I don't have more detail on that, but there will be some sort of component. I don't know much about Blankos though. Have you guys heard anything?
I have not. I'm guessing this is some sort of virtual conference that's happening.
It must be. Yeah. I see IGN and I get all excited as if it's like some huge thing, but you're right. It's just like all the crypto conferences, they all went virtual.
Not huge, but yeah, but I don't know. I'm excited because I was very excited about Blankos back in the day. And then, like you said, they kind of went quiet. It's clear that it's a rock star team behind them. So, I'm excited to see what they come up with.
Their whole team is Blizzard. Like, I'm sure there's other game companies, but the big one I remember is a bunch of ex-Blizzard like VPs. John Linden is their founder. But anyway, I don't have much to say because I don't know that much. Eve, your face just got all blurry. But I'm super excited about that because I'm hoping the gameplay trailer, I'm assuming that over the last year and a few months, a lot of improvements have been made to the gameplay since the South by Southwest 2019 conference that if you guys have been following us, Rob was there and got to play the games and shared all that. I still have my physical Blancos cards. Either of you guys got those?
No, I didn't get one.
Ooh, that kind of brings me to the next topic. Let's talk about Wax a little bit. I have not gotten into this NFT train because I was busy making fun of everyone that was into it, and then they all like 10x'd on their damn NFTs. So what's going on with the NFTs on Wax? Eve, you're a block producer there.
So Garbage Pail Kids, so Tops, the trading card company, released, and we knew about this for a long time, but they released a on Wax NFT Garbage Pail Kids GPK series. The series sold out in 28 hours. They went off like hotcakes. Within a few hours after them being sold out, they started selling on eBay. They started selling on the Simple Assets Marketplace. And some cards were going, I think, for like $800, $900. That was within 24 hours after the sale ended. And then they released a gold, I guess they had a contest. The people that did buy cards were eligible to then win the gold cards. One of our EOS Nation members, our Martin from he's living in China. He's a director out there in Asia. He won one of the gold cards, and those were going for $2,000-$3,000 per card. And so there's a huge hype over the GPK cards on Wax. Tons of new users came on. There was a channel that the EOS Sweden guys set up that you could see kind of all the trades that were going on. And if you were in that Telegram channel, it was just rolling. Like the amount of interest that generated was just insane. Like it's clear that there's a marketplace, that there are people that are out there other than Zack that apparently really want NFTs.
But you know what? I might not have gotten in on the GPK, but this guy right here is going to make me rich.
Oh, there you go, Blancos.
I got a couple of these.
That's an OG Blancos card.
OG.
I got a couple of those, man. After seeing, because I think Blancos could be huge. I've heard rumors that they'll be on consoles. So that's going to be huge. Like talking like PlayStation, Xbox, PC, obviously mobile. I don't know all the systems. None of this has been confirmed. It's all just kind of rumors, but I believe them for the most part. So after seeing what happened with Garbage Pail Kids, I hope that these Blancos cards could help me retire quicker and sooner. That'd be amazing. But let's see what else we got here. We got Sense 2.0. Eve, you said you wanted to talk about that. We were both on their webinar last week where they demonstrated it. It's got a lot of new features.
Tons of new features. I really like the way, I guess one of the coolest features that I saw was the vouching. So then instead of having traditional KYC, you're able to vouch for others. And there's a cost of vouching so that you don't just go vouching left and right. But if you know somebody, essentially you vouch them. It's that social validation that weeds out bots. So I thought that was a really cool feature. You've got staking into it. You've got obviously sending some tokens. All of the chats are encrypted by nature. So I think it's up to 50 people per chat maximum, but those are encrypted by default. And then if you want larger groups, then you can choose whether or not you want people that are in your network. You can do like subgroups. It's all about the social, I guess it's all about discussions, all about chatting, all integrated in one. The UI looked really cool. The UX looks super easy to, we saw the demo live and it looks so easy to actually go through. I'm really excited about Sense 2.0. And like disclaimer, I was not at all excited about Sense 1.0. I saw it. People that I know tried it. It wasn't that great. And it seems like it's a complete revamp. Looks amazing. So huge shout out to the Sense team because they've clearly been working their heads down now for over a year.
I'm out of stuff on my list of notes. I do see someone in the channel brought up that Blancos uses D-Goods. I forgot about that. D-Goods is going to make a comeback. So I think the Garbage Pail Kids and all the NFTs on Wax, don't they use Simple Assets framework? Simple
Assets, yes, right now, yeah. Simple Assets is kind of the most basic, I guess right now, functional NFT standard. It's very basic. So there are other standards that have come out. But D-Goods up until now has only been theoretical because nobody uses it. And I don't even think, not even sure if they have code or anything. I think it was just on paper. So Simple Assets really is the go-to right now.
Yeah. I have yet to see a D-Goods. I think Link's wallet had like a D-Goods like marketplace, but I don't know like what was in that marketplace because I don't remember. I never really got into it. I never really got into NFTs in general until Wax, and I'm still not into it. I'm like on the sidelines. I'm itching to get in though. I'll get in on the next FOMO train.
It's crazy how many, like 28 hours for all the cards to sell out is insane. Like people were jonesing for cards.
Wax is hot right now, man. There's a lot of cool
Wax
stuff
is
happening.
super hot right now. They're doing amazing work.
Rumors
Like,
about
Wax
some
is
Wax
really,
Council.
really
Do you know anything about the Wax Council stuff?
The Wax Council stuff? I'm not too sure what you're talking about. Maybe the word isn't. So Wax is a federated chain, right? So Wax has a centralized body, the Wax team. They essentially appoint the block producers. They control the tokens. They control the contracts. But the advantage with that, and they also have the IG, so the group essentially that rates the block producers and decides how the block producers are rated, but it's all centralized, right? The advantage with that is that they're able to iterate very, very quickly. So there's definitely a space for federated chains in the blockchain space, and Wax is really kind of the model right now that leverage EOSIO to be able to have that performance, did an ICO on Ethereum, so they have tons of funds, and they're really deploying, and they're deploying at a rapid pace, very business oriented. Like huge shout out to Wax, really, really good product.
Yeah, I had William Quigley on here a while ago. I need to get him back on, or Evan, the biz dev guy, talk about Wax, because there is a lot of cool stuff happening on there. I'm looking at this chat. So this is like a third hand or fourth hand rumor, but some Wax Council is like announcing partners. People are rumor mongering it could be Netflix, but I don't believe. I don't know, it could, but these are like fourth hand things from all the people I made fun of originally about the NFTs, who are all making fun of me now for not getting in on them. But there's all these rumors flying, but this is crypto. I wouldn't expect anything, but happy to be surprised. We've been going long here, boys. Is there anything we missed? I think we got to have some.
There's one thing I want to say before we end, because it's for the community. So EOS Nation just put up, and we just executed the lost keys contract. So the lost key, for those who didn't know, there's a lost keys contract. If you lost your Ethereum keys because you bought ICO tokens, or you had the ERC20 token version of EOS, you lost your keys, you couldn't unlock them, so you meet the criteria, you've never used your account and everything, there was a lost key recovery process. The process was, there was a timeline of 1 year that expired about a month ago. And by popular demand, community members reached out and said that they had not completed the process. And so we recompiled the contract, changed the end date. And so now it has been redeployed yesterday. And the now new end date is June of 2021. And so you've got 1 more year to go and claim your EOS if you have not done so, because you lost your keys.
Is there stats on how many of those accounts exist still?
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, because so there are a lot of accounts that have been untouched, right? Mm-hmm. And so we don't know if it's because they lost their keys or if it's because they just haven't touched their accounts. Mm-hmm. And so we're not able to provide that. But what we do know is that shortly after the lost key, I guess, initiative got deployed, there's about 2.6 million EOS that got unlocked. It's no small change. Like, there's quite a bit of people that lost their keys and that needed the help in order to be able to access them.
That's great. I think I might know one person that, I don't know if they actually went through with the lost keys, but they messaged me, like, they got in crypto at like the hype cycle, top of the bull cycle, like got out of it. They still own maybe like $100 of EOS, and they messaged me like a couple months ago, and they're like,
"What do I do?"
Yeah, and I told them about the lost keys solution, but I don't know.
Well, if you've got your keys, you don't need lost keys. Mm-hmm. So it's for the people that literally lost their keys. they have ERC20 tokens and they just don't have their keys, but they still have access to the EOS keys. To the Ethereum keys. So they still own the Ethereum account. They lost their EOS key pair, or there were specific people that got phished. I think it was on the Block.One site for like a couple of hours. And the key pair was exposed. Anyways, something happened there. And so, it helps out those people.
All right. Well, I think Myles had a hard stop at 7 or whatever time it is locally.
Had a hard stop like 40 minutes ago.
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, I got to sign off anyway. I got to have some dinner here. I promise everyone it won't be 6 weeks until the next one. I've actually got like 2 or 3 guests lined up who I'm excited. It'll be like interview style. One of them just won a $200,000 bounty recently. I'm happy to have him on as soon as possible to talk about that. But I'm looking forward to talking to you guys, bringing this show back. Eve will be on, I'm sure, on, if not week to week, every other week. We'll figure it out. I got to get in the rotation again. Got to get back in the routine. Hope you guys all enjoyed this. It's been a long one. Hope you guys made it through. So until next time, I'm Zack Gall.
I'm Eve.
And
Myles.
Myles does it. I don't remember. I haven't done this closing.
And this is everything EOS.
EOS.
Go EOS!
Bad.